The Ways and Means Committee meeting will come to order. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Davis.
Present.
Alderman Moore.
Here with a break.
Alderman Vaquero. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Murphy.
Here.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Here.
Alderman Muhammad. Chairman Williamson.
Here.
You have 6 present, you have 4.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. I'd like to make a motion to accept 133 committee sub.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Alderwoman Davis.
Yes.
Alderman Moore.
Yes.
Alderman Vaquero.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Murphy.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad. Chairman Williamson.
All right,
6 aye votes.
all right, thank you. Okay, today we're gonna hear the 133 committee sub, which is the convention center bill, very important bill. That will really improve our city and bring us up to standards, and so we can't give them out here. So we can compete with other cities. We got 2. We have an uncut version of the committee sub, and then we also have this one that has the lines drawn out, so you're welcome to, we'll pass them out and get them to you. So I'll go ahead and let the sponsor, Alderman Jack Coatar.
Thank you. We're starting early. I'm not used to meetings starting on time or even being called early here. Sorry, I'm running late. Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee, for having us today and hosting this on somewhat short notice. We've got a number of speakers lined up today. I know there's been somewhat of a presentation already given, but I don't think we had a quorum last time. So I think you all probably know the broad strokes of this project. You know, we're looking at a $175 million expansion of the Americas Center, new loading docks, expanding to the sort of north west of the property, and I think Kitty's going to go through her presentation. So I don't want to spend too much time talking. I'd rather just turn it over to Kitty and her team and let them give their sort of overview for everybody. And then I will also just comment that you've got a committee sub in front of you that has been the fruits of labor of the comptroller's office and the mayor's staff and their various lawyers to get this thing into tip-top shape that would like it to be in. Has the committee sub been passed around?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so you should have a committee sub in your, as the chairman mentioned, in your normal form, and also just a redlined version. And I'll say, you know, these were edits between the comptroller and the mayor's office just to get them in the order they want for the bond councils for the various offices wanted. It doesn't really, you know, change the parameters of the deal that was originally introduced at all. This is still a $175 million expansion. It still requires both city and county participation. Our bill is predicated on the county passing a very similar looking bill, you know, in their format, and both the city and the county committing $6 million a year, basically continuing our existing payments that are right now going towards the dome, towards this expansion, towards paying back these bonds. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions, or we can turn it over to.
And do you have some speakers, because they have to sign this?
No, we got speak. Yeah, let's circulate that. Can Kitty start and we'll circulate the.
They can sign it as they speak.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure, but we can still start.
All right, we'll turn it over to Kitty. Thanks, guys. I'm going to stand in the back here.
Thank you very much. Alderman.
Thanks, Kitty.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you for being here.
members of the committee, it's very nice to see you all here today. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Ready back to do some business.
That's right.
So I'm going to pass out, in addition to the bill which you have, I'm going to pass out a copy of the presentation that I'm going to go through so that you'll have that additional information here. Yeah, thank you very much. There's a paperclip letter to the front of the presentation. And then we'll provide copies of that presentation to the other members of the Board of Aldermen who are not able to be here today. My name's Kitty Ratcliffe. I'm the president of Explore St. Louis. And it's an honor to be able to talk to you today about a project that is vital for the economic development for our region. You're all very familiar with the Convention Center, which is a city-owned facility. And what we're here to talk to you about today, as the sponsor of the bill, talk to you is a project to make sure that we are able to make that building stay competitive, to use it as the tool for economic development that it was when it was originally built in 1977, 41 years ago. So I'm gonna share this with you here, and then I'll be happy to take some questions. And then, as you heard, we do have some speakers. We've got 5 speakers here today. Just want to talk to you about a couple of different aspects of the operation of the building, separate and apart from us and who we are. So the background on America Center, as I said, it's a city-owned building. You own it. St. Louis Municipal Finance Corporation owns it, and the city financed it. As you know, in addition to that, the dome at America Center was built as an attachment and an expansion. There is ownership by the city in the dome, but there's also ownership by the state and the county as well. The proposed new financing, as the alderman said, so I'm not gonna repeat that, and you can see it here, it is in the bill, but it basically keeps the payments that you are making now on the building the same for an extended period of time, and allows us to issue new bonds from that revenue stream. That is an existing revenue stream of a hotel tax that was put in place to build the dome. And that hotel tax was put in place in both the city and in the county. It is the source of the payments on the existing bonds, and we're proposing that we would use that same source just to issue new bonds in both the city and the county. We're calling it AC Next Gen. Again, we have a 41-year-old convention center. What does America Center look like for the next generation in order to keep us competitive in the future? Some of you may have seen this. We did put this out through a variety of different media sources, so if you've seen it, that's terrific. As it goes on, I'm gonna just point out a few things, but I'll let you take a look at it. So as you see, we're situated on the north end of the downtown area, as you know. There are the 2 buildings there, and we're planning to develop on existing parking that surrounds the building. There are some surface lots and a garage that would be used to make way for the expansion of the exhibit space. Would give us a linear design that we do not have now. Would allow us to triple the number of loading docks to get more freight in and out of the building in a more timely fashion. And then taking some of the existing exhibit space and converting that to a ballroom, a high-purpose ballroom. And then converting a surface parking lot into beautiful outdoor event space that can be enjoyed not only by the people who are attending events there, but also by the people in the neighborhood surrounding it, people who live there, people who work in the surrounding areas. So overall, improving the entire complex and the experience that visitors have when they come into and out of America Center on their way to hotels and restaurants. As you can see, the transformation from what we have today into what the future looks like. There are also some other upgrades. We need to do a little facelift on some of the other areas, including Washington Avenue entrance. It's an interesting thing that there actually is no exterior lighting to the convention center on Washington Avenue. So when you go by it at night, the lights that you see are actually coming from the lobby out. So we need to brighten and lighten that. And then taking again some of the surface lots and things that we have around the building that really don't add anything to the region, and turning them into event space that can be utilized by T-Rex, by the people who live on Washington Avenue, by the people who live on Cole Street, everything around there when there isn't an event in the convention center, for walking their dogs and just enjoying the green space that the north end of downtown doesn't really have. What you're looking at is some of the beautiful space inside the convention center, which opens up into the city by creating these 2-story glass walls, which replace walls right now that are really barriers between the convention center and the community. What you're seeing here is the renovation of the loading docks, which will put the loading docks behind a wall, because right now they're out and exposed, and will allow us with those walls to be able to lighten the entire experience to the region by putting artwork and lighting on the north end of the convention center instead of the ugly loading docks that are there now. So that's just a quick overview of what that looks like. We're really excited about this project, and all the customers who've seen this are very excited about it as well. So, St. Louis is right in the forefront of doing a lot of great things, and we're getting a lot of good press about that, from Soldiers Memorial to all the other projects. But America's Center really is the front door for a lot of people to come into the community who don't choose to necessarily come to St. Louis. They choose to attend an event in the convention center, which happens to be in St. Louis because we've worked really hard to recruit it to our community versus letting it go to Indianapolis or Nashville or one of the other cities that we compete against. And it's hugely important for the region overall in terms of the number of people that come into the community who bring new money into St. Louis. And our impact on our regional economy is that new money. That is people who are coming in, who spend that money in our community instead of spending it in some other community, creating jobs, creating tax revenues, and overall causing development to happen. And when you look at Washington Avenue as an example, today, compared to what it looked like in 1977, when the convention center first opened, when it was 2 blocks south of the entrance to the convention center, which was on Convention Plaza, and then what it looked like in 1993, when the southern expansion was done and it was brought south to Washington Avenue. Those of you who were around then will remember that Washington Avenue had a lot of boarded up buildings. That is not today. This kind of development causes other development, it causes private development to occur in our community, and the restaurants and the hotels and the activity and the nightlife that is there and available for all of us who live here also happens because we put the front door of America's Center at Washington Avenue. It's a 365-day-a-year economic engine. All kinds of events come into St. Louis and occur here because we have the venue. And it's important to note that this venue doesn't compete against Scott Trade Center. It does not compete against the Chaffetz Arena. It does not compete against the St. Charles Convention Center. Those are very different types of venues. They're also a very different size and scope. So this venue competes only against venues of similar like size and design in other cities. This is an eye chart that I'm not going to have you read. The only really important note here is $265 million in brand new money that comes in on average into the community because of the events in America's Center. And these are some of the types of events that come: national conventions of associations, religious groups, corporations, and then trade shows and events that need a lot of, that have a lot of freight that come in with them that need the loading dock access. And this is not, in case you're wondering about how we're able to bring the county into this deal versus some of the other deals in this city, which are city only, because this building does not just generate activity for the city of St. Louis. It really is a regional economic engine, so that when we have a big event in the convention center, that demand, that new demand coming into the community causes compression that actually influences the occupancy and the rates that are being charged at hotels throughout the entire region. Everybody sees a benefit from that compression that occurs. And the people that are coming here because someone picked St. Louis versus Indianapolis or Austin or San Antonio for their convention, the people that are coming here are often coming for the first time. So we do intercept surveys of the attendees for the big conventions that are new to St. Louis, and we ask them if they've been to St. Louis before, if they've been here within the last 5 years, and what their impressions are. And you can see, overwhelmingly, people are coming here for the first time, or at least the first time in a very long time. And overwhelmingly, they report a very positive experience, which they take home when they go back. As I've already said, we drive development of all other types. We also purchase a lot of goods and services. When we have big events in America's Center, we have to buy the goods and services to provide the food. We have to buy cleaning products. We purchase as much as we can locally. And what you see here is just a representation of purchasing that we've done in Missouri, specifically in the city and the county of St. Louis. But we also do purchasing in St. Charles County and from other businesses that are within the region. That'll give you a snapshot of what an annual amount looks like, about $14 million in purchasing for goods and services in our region and in Missouri, and 36% on average with minority and women-owned businesses in Missouri. We also create vibrancy for the streets that doesn't happen if we don't have big events, and we also create a lot of jobs. Now, this project in particular will create some construction jobs over the course of a couple of years, but what I'm talking about here today is the jobs annually, day in, day out, that we have when we have big events in the community. And this will give you a sampling of some of the types of the workers that we have. This one here in particular is a sampling of the downtown hotels. We did a survey of our downtown hotels, and that's a compilation. These are our workers at the Convention and Visitors Commission, and this is one of our contractors, the full-time workers and the food service. It'll give you a breakdown and show you this by ethnicity, this by residence. And the interesting thing for us is if you look at this, almost 80% of our workers are coming from city and county. We don't have, so the city and the county of St. Louis don't have 80% of the population of our metro area. We have less than 50% of the population. So this really is dominated by a workforce that is comprised of the citizens of St. Louis City and St. Louis County. And a further breakdown, just for your edification, this won't be in the county presentation, but in the city presentation, we did a breakdown of where in the city overall we know those are coming from. And those again are snapshots of, Charlie Brown is here, he's gonna talk to you a little bit further, but he gave us the top 10 zip codes of their employees, and we plotted those, and then these are the other, not the top 10. But as you can see, it really is spread from throughout the city in terms of those workers.
From around the world to St. Louis for conventions.
We opened our downtown location because of conventions in America Center. We wouldn't be here without them.
Each year, Conventions in America Center support the jobs of more than 3,000 St. Louisans.
We bring meetings to life. Big conventions are big business for AV companies like mine. Conventions matter to me.
Visit conventions mean business.
So this is our competition. As I said, this is who we're up against. We are not up against other venues in this city. And everybody that we're competing against is making major investments. They have made them, and we're losing ground. They are making them today. And if you had said to me 10 years ago that we would be competing against Oklahoma City, I would have said that's ridiculous. That's no longer ridiculous. They are building a brand new, this is a rendering because it's under construction right now, but a brand new $300 million convention center in Oklahoma City. So on average, that average investment, and this is just convention centers, this isn't stadiums, this isn't like our football stadium to their stadium, this is just the convention center portion. On average, that's a $259 million spend in those other cities. We're talking to you about $175 million. So it's a very economical project when you look at what everybody else is doing. I touched on one of the things that we desperately need to do, and that is to build a ballroom. Right now, this is the size of our largest event space. Many of you have been there for events.
That's right, cramped in, yes.
It is way too small. This is what we're proposing to do. Put a 65,000 square foot ballroom in that will effectively compete with all the rest of these guys, because right now we can't. We're losing a lot of business. We have already lost some big events. We've talked to you about some of these before, but this has actually been in the news this year because we lost this event in 2018, O'Reilly Automotive, which is a Missouri-based company. We lost First Robotics in 2018, which we had had here successfully for 7 years. Both of those big events in this 1 year really it was a big hit for us and for the hospitality industry and the workers in our industry. Also for the economics, because that's the new money that did not come into the community this year. That's tax revenue that was not created this year. And we lost both of those events because of the size of our building. And this is what happens in Indianapolis and Nashville compared to St. Louis and Denver. They made major investments in their product that we haven't made yet. But this red line demonstrates the average daily rate in the downtown hotels every single year since 2010 in St. Louis, every single year in Denver, in Indianapolis, and in Nashville. And what you can see here is the big difference that these two cities made in their product. In 2010, the Indianapolis Convention Center expansion opened, and in 2010, Nashville began construction on theirs, which opened here in 2013. And you can see we were identical to Indianapolis, and we were only a few bucks behind Nashville. That's no longer the case. The difference in the money coming into those communities is substantial. As I said to you before, I promise I'm almost done here, but as I said to you before, we're talking about replacing parking with the right kind of venue to be able to compete. And then we do have the option here of one of these surface parking lots that LCRA has under control of replacing that parking there. That's not in the $175 million project because LCRA could RFP that for a developer to come in and build a parking facility there. So that's, again, a description of that, which I've shown you. Again, this right now is a parking garage, so this will allow us to design an exhibit hall that is got a linear design with triple the number of loading docks. It will allow us to cover those docks with a roof and a wall that will now improve the neighborhood to the north. It will allow us to then take out that existing exhibit space and turn it into the ballroom with the plaza. And again, here's that surface parking lot to the west, which could be parking. Improvements to the streetscapes, including lighting to the front, the ballroom, which you've already seen in the video. This is what that surface parking lot looks like today at 9th. That's what it will look like in the future, with a new entrance at ground level and opening this up and park space for people to enjoy. This is what Washington Avenue will look like, Cole Street will look like in the future when we do the new linear design on that parking lot that's right here right now and redoing the loading docks. That will allow us to add a green roof and a food roof. And our plan is that the food roof will provide food for the kitchen to be able to use for the attendees for their meals, but also that the surplus will be able to be distributed within the neighborhood at no charge.
It's
Yes,
cool, yeah.
and that's Cole. So this is what Cole looks like today, Alderman. And this is what that wall will look like in the future, so that the trucks right now, which are parked out on the street, which does not create a very good neighborhood for the people who live right here on the other side of this street, right? This is what they look at 24 hours a day. The trucks will be behind a wall that will allow us to light it, create art, do plantings, and put a roof on that will allow us to do that green roof and food roof there. So we really believe that with this project, we can make this a very competitive building. These are the elements that I've already talked to you about that will be that project. This is the return on that investment. So you remember this same slide, the previous slide that had this number here, $265 million. We will be able to stabilize the decline that we're seeing now to keep groups like First Robotics from leaving, stabilize that, plus grow it with the new space, the loading docks that we've never had before for the big shows that we've never been able to get. And that's your growth, 36% growth in the business that we have had. This is just an example of what the compression business, First Robotics, we had them in April of 2017. We did not have them in April of 2018. This shows on that same day pattern, the occupancy, the average daily rate, and the revenue per available room for the metro area hotels. This is the loss, $5.5 million in lost hotel revenue in this short period from one event. So the impact on our community from attendee spending is critical. The projected room night, if we don't do this, is that this will decrease. This is what we're looking at this year compared to last year and in 16 as a result of losing First Robotics and O'Reilly Automotive and Joyce Meyer Ministries, which we also lost for this year. Yeah. That's the difference in this year. Now, we've got some recovery time to bring that back up in 19 and 20, but it's going to continue on a slow decline. The building will never be empty, right? The building can still be used for boat shows and car shows and all kinds of things, but the room night demand, that out-of-town new money coming into the community, that's the loss if we don't do this. It's a $175 million project, and we've got a lot of workers that need this done. So that is my presentation. We've got 5 people that are, do we have this rotated around for them to have signed up? That
Sure,
each
yeah,
would like to
whoever you want
share?
have come up.
We'll start with Charlie Brown if we can with Regency. Yeah.
How everybody doing?
Hello.
Pass this out 2 at a time so you guys can have.
Sure.
look at it. Yeah.
No, sorry,
I'm
sorry, Charlie.
I'm So, I'm Charlie with Regency. I own the labor company here and the staffing company and the facility maintenance company here in St. Louis. Regency Enterprises is a St. Louis-based owned and operated facility management company. We're certified as a minority-owned entity in St. Louis, Missouri, and federally with the SBA. In the past 2 years, we've been ranked by the St. Louis Business Journal as the top 25 minority-owned businesses. One of the foundations of our success is the opportunity we've had since 2010 at America Center. Since our first year working at the convention center, we have provided jobs to more than 1,000 St. Louis residents at the convention center complex, earning money to support their families that they turn around and spend here in the metropolitan area. We live in the St. Louis area, we spend our money in the St. Louis area, and to support this, I will share the following. And I don't have to go through them all, but everybody can look at the zip codes and see where most of the workers come from that work for us at the convention center. In more than 8 years working in every corner of America, supporting every show, I can tell you that this facility definitely needs the upgrades this legislation will support. So that's pretty much it. Unless anybody have anything else, any questions?
We're just gonna have you guys, do your presentation.
Then why?
Okay.
That sounds great.
All right.
Thank you, Charlie.
Vera?
Vera?
This is, Vera Sansi.
Sastry. So good afternoon, my name is Vera Sastry.
Sastry.
Yes, and I am the Director of Hotel Operations at the Marriott St. Louis Grand, so it's good to be here. So I'm here today representing our more than 400 employees. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today regarding the proposed expansion and renovation of America Center. I appreciate your time and consideration. This project is critical to the long-term success of downtown St. Louis, the continued redevelopment of Washington Avenue, and the overall economic well-being of the region. I'd like to provide a brief capsule of the Marriott Grand's impact on the local economy. Our ownership group has invested more than $50 million in the hotel in the last 4 years alone, including a $30 million renovation that was completed in 2015. The amount of continued future investment is tied heavily to the ability to attract citywide conventions. Our hotel employees, more than 400 associates, nearly than half of whom are St. Louis residents. As a single entity, we generate in excess $50 million annually and provide more than $8 million in state and local taxes. We're proud to serve as the headquarter hotel for the great city of St. Louis. As such, we rely heavily on the stability to attract large conventions to the city, and more specifically, America Center. In 2015 and 2016, approximately 40% of our total room revenue was generated by citywide conventions that utilize the convention center. As new or renovated and expanded convention centers have hit the market in the last few years, the Grand has lost 25,000 citywide room nights and have seen the percentage of convention center business drop to 25% of total revenue this year, and we're forecasting a similar figure for 2019 and 2020. Without a healthy citywide convention calendar, the hotels in St. Louis, including the Grand, are left to compete against each other to fill the void. This leads to a drop in occupancies, rates, and tax contributions. It is clear to me that the expansion and renovation of America Center is a necessary project for the city to remain relevant in an ever-increasing competitive marketplace. More citywide convention means higher occupancy, higher revenues, more employment, continued reinvestment in St. Louis, and additional tax revenues to the region. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your time and consideration. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My name is Stephen Ballman. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I represent Lodging Hospitality Management. We operate 18 hotels in the metro region, 2 of which are downtown, or Hilton Ballpark and Union Station. Both aren't adjacent to the center, so Hilton Ballpark's 5 blocks away, and Union Station another 8 blocks away from the center, and not in the CID district. Kitty alluded to First and O'Reilly. LHM alone, we lost 1.2 million this year by not having them. And that's not just downtown, that's our metro airport, and as well as Westport, even Chesterfield get some of these rooms. So anytime we have these large conventions, it pushes out to all of our area. And that means jobs. If you have multiple nights of occupancy where we're sold out, we can give the hours to our team members that deserve it. I really appreciate your time. It's very important to LHM to get this. We need to compete with other cities. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
What is your name again?
Stephen Ballman. And what?
In your organization.
Lodging and Hospitality Management, LHM, locally owned.
Next time you come in here, would you please bring a presentation?
Most certainly.
Thank you.
Most certainly.
I don't have a presentation either. Just have a few words to say. I'm Missy Kelly. I'm the president and CEO of Downtown STL Inc., and we're the organization that helps to promote economic growth in downtown St. Louis, partially through marketing downtown, but also through some of the other things like beautification and safety, supporting safety efforts. So as Kitty mentioned in her presentation, 600,000 people a year coming through that building is significant for the downtown community, and the current decline that we've seen in convention business has had a significant impact on the restaurants especially, but even the retailers on Washington Avenue. There are still a few of those, and they're struggling greatly. The convention business is really the bread and butter, primarily because the residential occupancy in downtown St. Louis, while growing, is still relatively small and just can't, the residential community can't support the restaurants 24/7. So that's a really important thing. Another thing I wanted to bring up is just that there has been a lot of development on the south side of downtown, so which is great. Ballpark Village has been doing well, and they're expanding, and as a result of that, there have been some other entertainment venues and restaurants that have popped up on that south side of downtown. What we're really starting to see is the north side of downtown, where all that convention business tends to, originate and congregate, at least starts out. Not that they don't also move south when they're in downtown, but that area right around it is really struggling, and the lack of convention business, or the lower convention business, has really been difficult for that part of downtown. So the other thing I wanted to mention was that the project financing for many of the projects that are on Washington Avenue and around there, such as the MX district, was all, the project financing was all based on the convention business. Like, all of that was factored in. So when we look at the redevelopment that continues to need to be done in both the north and the south side of downtown, we need to be able to point to convention business that is strong and growing. So that's really all I have to say. Thank you very much for considering this. It's really important to all of us.
I think I'm last. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Felicia Shaw, and I'm the Executive Director of the Regional Arts Commission of St. Louis. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this project. The Regional Arts Commission, which we call RAC, was established in 1985 to support the arts. And 100% of our funding comes from hotel motel taxes. It's really important to the many.
Stand ahead of the table so we
Oh,
get
because
you on
the
camera.
cameras. Oh, I see. Should I start over? Afternoon, everybody. No.
We just want to see your pretty face.
So, since 1985, we have contributed over $100 million in grants to local arts organizations, 7,000 grantees, and many of them depend heavily on the tourism business to do what they do. This is why this project is so important. Most of the previous speakers have spoken about this from a city impact. From RAC's perspective, this is a regional impact. The source of the funding that RAC provides to the cultural institutions in St. Louis is hotel taxes. Our cultural and arts community is strong in St. Louis. We do a lot to support the economy. We have over 19,000 jobs that are created from the arts, but we cannot do it alone. And this all happens. The reason these arts organizations are so strong and contribute to the vibrancy of the region is because of the tourism industry, which provides the funding. I implore you to keep America's Center competitive so that the convention center business can continue to fuel the cultural assets in our community to the benefit of our citizens, making St. Louis a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. You have anything to talk about? Go ahead.
I do.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I passed out to you this little 4-pager that talks about how we're going to do this. And as you've heard, the project cost is $175 million, and our portion is half, of course. And this board bill will authorize up to $105 million in leasehold revenue bonds. And you say, well, that adds up to more than our half. But because of the market conditions will dictate, we may have to sell more bonds to get the 90 million. In other words, we can't ask for 90 million because if we don't get the funding because of the market conditions and the interest rates and the bond insurance and the cost of issuance and all those other little crazy little costs that come in there, we're just putting a number out there that will certainly will be under in order to raise what we need. The source of the debt service payment, as you all will recall, it's been said already in this meeting, and you'll recall this when I mention it, that the city pays $6 million a year for its portion of the debt service on the dome. That's $5 million for debt service, and $1 million goes to a maintenance preservation account. And that will conclude in 2024. We'll be paid, the dome will be paid off in 2024. Now, that's the exact same amount of money that the county also contributes to the dome debt service. The state puts in 10 and 2 for, they double what the city and the county, they match what the city and the county puts in. So in 2024, what this bill does, it takes the $6 million that was going for the dome debt service, and it starts to pay off these new bonds that will be to fund the expansion. So there is not any incremental cost to the city. It just extends for, we think 30, maybe 35 years, but we're going to just extend the existing $6 million in payments that we're currently making to cover the cost of our share of the expansion. It does not affect the existing $17.7 million, which is under the master and junior indentures that built and expanded the convention center already. That stays in place until 2039. What this bill does do, though, is it creates an opportunity to extend that financing for another 10 years or more, depending on how long we have to sell the bonds for. So the 17.7 will go out to at least 2049 from 2039. And what that does is we're trying to create a capacity, if indeed something else needs to be done of a nature that is not a major project like this, so we don't have to come back and try to figure out how to do it again. So this kind of puts in place a number of pieces, but I will say that it also protects the city in that if the county does not move in step with us, then we don't sell the bonds. If they don't move forward, we don't move forward. And that's pretty much it.
Very good. Okay, let's go around and ask questions, ask the members. Do you have any questions to ask? Alderwoman Davis.
Sorry, sure.
One of the questions I wanted to ask, I think I want to ask Kitty this question. So this is a well thought out plan, and I've been working with you for a while on this, and I try to stay as astute as I can. There is we're still gonna be behind the other, markets, even after we do this. But at least now we can be somewhat more competitive. And that's what people need to understand. In order to drive the economics in the best interest of the city, we need to have the extension of this plan follow after we do this as soon as possible. Have you already thought about that part of it?
Yes, I mean, what we've really done is taken the two buildings and looked at them as two different buildings, which is what they are, and they have two different ownership groups. So this plan makes the improvements that we need to make to the convention center. You know, down the road, when we deal with the issues of the end of the lease on the dome coming up towards the end of 2025, in that time frame between now and then, we also have to make some decisions as to what happens with the dome piece. Because you're right, I mean, the dome right now is a very viable venue, but it was designed as a football stadium. It was not designed as a convention center. But we are going to need to have state participation in that. The state has a 50% stake in the dome, and we can't touch it without the state.
Okay.
So what we've been trying to do is move this ball forward with the city and county participation and address building number one that gives us then the opportunity to talk to the state about putting in some funding to address building number two and making those improvements.
That makes me feel a whole lot better, knowing that we are gonna be progressing as soon as possible. Because there's a lot of money that could come to this city if that dome is also converted to be more of a concert venue and also be used with the larger conventions. And the ones that we get now, they could have really used that dome in a different way, that largest one that we get, Coatar. There are even larger ones who need that capacity.
That's absolutely right,
Yeah.
and you know it because you spent so much time in the building.
Yeah.
So I don't need to tell you this, but I'll say it for, I guess, for the benefit of everybody in the room, is those two buildings were designed to be two different buildings. And one of the biggest issues that we have to address going forward when we look at that phase two is how do the two buildings connect so that they flow as one. For the largest conventions, we have to have that open connectivity that we do not have right now.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, thank you, and I wanted to say to Jim that having the ability for the public to understand that we're not creating new expenses for them. We're just carrying on where we are now, those payments, extending them, and also using the opportunity to have some additional funds more available at a faster rate by going out and have the bond capacity established now. So it sounds complicated, but for what you're doing, what you all know you're doing, it's simple and smart. So I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Good point, good point. Okay. Alderman Moore.
Downtown, downtown, downtown. I am so tired of downtown getting all the entertainment. And my ward gets entertainment of poverty, and it is a crying shame that we're being ignored like we're being ignored. I have to say this in order to get to where I'm going. Disparity reigns free in my community. We talk about the ballpark village, Jack Coatar's Hotel, Convention Center, and I'm crazy enough to believe that eventually some of those jobs will come to my community. If you go to NGA, it's a whiteout. You can't hardly find a black person working at the NGA. Dust flying, trucks rolling, millions of dollars being spent, and all we get are promises about jobs, jobs, jobs. I'm an older man now, and I haven't seen any jobs trickle from my neighborhood, and we send applicants down there. They go through a lot of red tape. At Hiram, when I was a carpenter, we had a season called coon season. And coon season was from September to March. They lay off all the blacks. Then after March and April, they put us by the fence so we could be observed as part of the criteria for minority inclusion. The lady number 5 from the downtown, I forget where you say you're from.
Regional Arts Commission.
No, next to you.
Missy Kelly, downtown STL.
You compare north side of downtown to the south side of downtown, because the south side is getting everything. That's where I compare downtown to my part of town. Downtown is getting everything, and we're not getting anything. I have 1,700 vacant lots, 1,242 empty buildings, and I preach this all the time, because I want people to know that there needs to be some investment. I know a lot of people don't like to hear it, but it's the truth. There need to be some investment in the people that live in the city of St. Louis. It gets absolutely nothing but disparity, and we're tired of it. But because I'm a negotiator for Kojic, Church of God in Christ, bringing them into the city of St. Louis, we're one of the largest conventions, if not the largest. And Kitty, I didn't see us on that presentation. I wanted more Kojic.
They on there.
Is it?
No, you're there.
Yeah.
And ask you nothing, Pam.
Blow on you.
But I took a tour of the food service area with Kitty one day to show how the food comes from down in the kitchen, downstairs, around that long hall, up the elevator by the time it's cold. I don't know how you do it. I'm gonna vote for this, but with a heavy heart. Kitty, did you say that the use tax from the hotels is part of this payment?
Yes, it's all from the 3.5% tax on hotels. There's no other source of funds from the city.
And to the gentleman at Regency Enterprise Service, what percentage of that money do you think you're gonna get out of the $175 million, $1 million?
It just depends on how many people we have working for the event.
All your workers minority?
95%.
To the lady with the Marriott Hotel, how many new employees you think you'll get?
I guess it all depends.
How
Certainly
many?
hope there will be some new employees from, that are hired,
How many employees do you have now?
approximately 400.
How many of them are black minority?
The majority of our hotel is African American.
I had a question for all you guys, but I'm gonna support this with, like I said, with a heavy heart, that some jobs will eventually trickle to my community. Maybe I could send down a couple of people and get them hired.
Absolutely.
But that's not good, it's a drop in the bucket on the way I have to fight for my community that is so disparate. And I tell you this all the time, we live like the Jetsons compared to the Flintstones. Yabba dabba do, but we're not having a gay old time. It is horrific and terrible living in there. And while we're sitting here as big developers talking about $175 million, remember behind the arch wall, there are people that are suffering every day, that living a life of squalor, that are not living the way they should live, humans should live in America, in the Android, United States of America, in the region, in the big metropolis city of St. Louis. We are starving, and community gone completely wild. Like the tape used to be Girls Gone Wild. Well, the fourth ward is gone completely wild. And I need help, so anybody in here, you have an ear, you're listening, there's always an opportunity. You have not, you ask not. We need help, not just from the mayor's office, not from the police department, but we need help in there. 1,700 vacant lots, 1,242 empty buildings. For Kitty, I'm with you. God bless.
Thank you, Alderman. And we all recognize the challenges. We want to do everything we can do to improve the lives of the people of our community, because that's why the building is there. And as you know, we're really dedicated to that in our organization. We don't pay anything less than $15 an hour. I don't pay anything less than $15 an hour is the lowest that we pay, and that includes, on top of that, we do benefits.
Well, I'm gonna send my whole war.
Joe, you sent your whole war to me.
All right.
And that's because that's why we're here. So I'm with you.
Great. Well, the points you made, Alderman, are well taken. Appreciate that. Alderman Coatar.
Just a couple things. Darrell Jones, when we were here the last time when we couldn't get a quorum, he already agreed with John Muhammad that he would go into his ward, and I'm sure he would in the years, to do job recruitment. And so he said that all John has to do is give him a place, and he will go into his ward. The other thing on the construction side of this, because we had the Mason Tillman study, so the county, and it went through legislation, which is my committee, but it was Jeffrey Boyd's bill. They have to meet the minority participation. For every percent that they don't meet the minority participation, they have to pay, the contractor has to pay that percent back. In other words, they lose that percent. So if a company bids, just for the sake of, let's say they bid $100, $35 of that has to be minority participation. It's 0.5% Indians, it's, I think it's 2% Spanish, 30% or so black male, and certain percent female. They have to hit every one of them goals. For every one they don't hit, they have to pay that, and I'm not exactly sure where that money goes, but every
That's go to a nonprofit.
right, so for every percent, so if a company comes in and bids $100 on that construction on that, and they only get 30% minority participation, they have to pay out of that $100, 5%, or 5% to, I believe it's a charity. I thought, I'd have to see the groups.
No enforcement, Joe.
No, I'm telling you.
Nobody enforces that.
No, this just passed.
Nobody enforces
It
it.
is-
Whether
it-
it's just passed or not, it's not gonna get enforced.
I guarantee you it will be enforced, because there was all parts that were put in there. And again, this is part of, and the county has not passed it, but it's gonna be there.
They passed a version of it already.
Did they? Okay. But
Let's try to stay on
Yeah.
point.
Well, this is on point.
Well, I understand. but
This is
let's don't veer
about,
off too much.
this is about,
I know, but
but
he explained it. I don't know how, you've already said it, Joe. We understand what Bill is talking about. We do.
well, no, all I'm saying
I
is
know.
to help
preaching
address,
is kind of redundant, but go ahead.
thank you, to address the minority participation and jobs. And jobs from your neighborhood and other neighborhoods throughout the city and the county, there will be minority participation on this job. And I guarantee you, there is oversight on it, and Terry Kennedy and Jeffrey Boyd worked extremely hard for 2 years to pass this, and it has teeth. But that's all I'm saying, is that the construction work should benefit, and hopefully should benefit, a lot of minorities in the city. It's just a fact. And I was really happy to get that legislation through. So, I mean, that was just more of a comment.
Appreciate that. Appreciate the comments. It was a bill that we all worked on very hard, the Black Caucus and Automatic Caucus. So we were very well of it. But thanks for the comments. We appreciate it. Okay, Alderwoman Murphy.
Yeah, just a logistics thing, kind of thing, we're optimistic about the county participation?
Very.
Very?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I kind of thought, I just wanted to make sure.
You know, Kitty has worked closely, and many others have, with the county executive and the county
Okay.
council, who I know often have their disagreements.
Yes,
But I
that's
think
why I
we
brought
found
it
something
up.
they're in agreement on.
Oh, good, excellent. And I've been to Columbus, Ohio, I've seen theirs, and I'm gonna be in Indianapolis this weekend, so I'm gonna check on it.
Check it out.
And see, ours looks like it's gonna be better. But, and see, we didn't need those Rams after all. Will there be a lot of downtime while this is going on?
That's a really good question. So-
Because we're already losing stuff.
It's a really good question, because we can't afford any downtime,
Exactly.
right? So, I'm glad you asked the question. I'm sorry I didn't think to address it in my presentation. The way that we've got this planned, we can stage this so that we do not have significant disruption of business. The surface, or the parking garage at 9th and Cole, that C9 garage, we can tear that down and we can start construction of the new exhibit hall without even touching the existing building. And then we just have to have a window of a few months for that connection point, and we've got time to work with the contractor around that. So we can add that space without disrupting the existing space. And then once that is finished, we can move the business that's in the halls that are gonna be converted to the ballroom. We can move that business to the new space. So
Okay.
we're in a really good place. We'll have to deal with some
Oh,
clients
sure,
in terms of moving their space around and everything, but we should not have to lose any business as a result.
Excellent, very good. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alderman. Alderman Ford.
Kitty, I too had did the tour, and it brought back memories, because I used to work there.
You told me.
Yeah, long years ago, but, and I too look at, you and I had talked about how they're transporting the food, and I was excited that you wanted to change that process. But did you do any kind of survey to see why people left? Did you know, because usually if people leave out, you know, you try to find out why they don't wanna come back, or what was the causes, or?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. We do, I touched on a little bit there that we do surveys. I only put up 2 questions that we asked, though. You know,
Right.
when, how long has it been since you were here, and what was your experience? But we do much more extensive surveys of the attendees when they're in, and we also survey the meeting planner, the person responsible for organizing it. In terms of business that's lost, the majority of the business that we lose is simply because new buildings have come online that better meet their needs than ours.
Okay.
It is rare, it's an interesting thing, because people would assume that we lose business because of crime. I hear that question a lot. It is rare that that is cited for a reason for them leaving. It is something that comes into play in our ability to recruit them here in the first place. Because that perception of crime and that national media about crime is something that scares them off. But when we're successful in getting them here, we prove that that's not a concern.
Okay.
That this city, from that perspective, is as safe as they're gonna find in any other city. Every major city in their downtown areas has issues of crime.
Right.
The experience that the attendees have when they're here is no different than it is in those other cities.
Okay.
So it really is about having that infrastructure piece, having that building that can compete, where the meeting planner is making the decision.
Okay, and you and I did talk, and we created a business association in the ward, and I kind of brought that information to them. So now they're trying to get themselves ready to be marketed, to get to you, for you to have people in those conventions to come into our area.
Good.
As Alderman Moore says, you know, they focus on downtown, but I'm a dot connector, and so my feelings are, that's good, they come downtown and they utilize the services down there, but it's areas, other places that they can utilize also. So that's what
Absolutely.
we're trying to do, connect those dots.
Absolutely.
To bring more revenue into our area.
Well, the downtown's the easy part.
Right,
You know,
right.
to your comment now, and to Alderman Moore's comment, you know, the downtown's the easy part. What is the infrastructure that you have around the building? What are the hotels? What is the capacity to get the group?
Right, right.
But once they're here, they have the experience to go other places.
Right.
And we work really hard with a lot of neighborhoods in the city, but also neighborhoods in the county and in the region, about trying to figure out how to position them to make the experience to visit them a unique one that is gonna be attractive to those
Right.
groups. So is it the food scene? Is it particular shops? Is it a particular outdoor recreational experience? What is it that those neighborhoods, each of which have something that's unique to offer? How do we position it? And so
Right.
you've already started that process,
Yeah,
so that's
yeah.
terrific.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, relevant to what both of you have said, and I mentioned this at the last time that we had this board meeting, but one of the things I think that is relevant to keep in mind is that the downtown generates about 25% of the general revenue fund, and only about 5% of that is reinvested in downtown. So that gap is reinvested in the rest of the city, in the neighborhoods that don't have the economic base to afford some of the city services. So the more, and I'm not at all saying that we shouldn't be investing in the other areas, we absolutely should, but the more economic activity that we have in downtown, the entire city benefits because of what goes into the general revenue fund from downtown. So I just think it's an important thing to keep in mind. And it's, as I said, it's been difficult for all of us as the convention center or business and the foot traffic has declined. But as that goes back up, we should all benefit from that indirectly.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Is there any way you can get us some data on that to show
Yeah,
us?
we have a study.
Okay.
Yes,
You
and absolutely.
We are, or the vice chair, Alderman Davis. We appreciate it. We'll get that documentation.
I'll give it to you.
Yeah, well, appreciate all the questions. Like Alderman Moore said and several of you, our neighborhoods need a lot of help. They need revitalizing. We understand that we're trying to improve the city as a whole. We understand that downtown is the heartbeat. And so goes downtown, sadly, so goes the city. So we understand the reinvestment of downtown and trying to, revitalize it and keeping it up and going, so we can be competitive with other cities, so. And that's pretty much all I have to add, so I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, just as a procedural matter, I think you need to place the committee sub in front of you all.
I thought
Did
they
you
did
already
that.
do
We
that?
did.
Okay, sorry.
Well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So, I entertain a motion to pass our board bill.
I
to
will
Ms.
move that we
150.
pass Board Bill 133, committee substitute with the do pass recommendation.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
Alderman Moore.
Archie Bunker.
Alderman Vaquero.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Murphy.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad. Chairman Williamson.
All right,
6 ayes.
all right, board bill 133. Pass that committee sub.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you. All right, we have board bill 158. Up next, sponsors,
So it gets second.
Alderman. Okay, we're back in session with the Ways and Means. We have board bill 158. The sponsor is Joseph Balmer, and the floor belongs to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for your time. What we're doing here is taking a property, city-owned property of 3120 Alfred, which is in quite a mess of disrepair, been sitting vacant for some time, and we're going to be selling it to the Wagner family. Mary Jane Wagner, his name will be on it. We have her son William Wagner here representing the family today. The purpose of this purchase will be to gut the building, renovate it, and make it is it universal?
Single-family resident, universal design.
Universal design, which, having represented this part of town for the last 16 years, this building has been nothing but an eyesore, a pain. It's tried to serve many things. They tried to use it for a polling center, but the roof leaks so bad. The back of the building's falling off, and to take it off the city payroll and put it into the hands of Mr. Wagner, who here, if you're familiar with the Margaretford area for the last, 18 or so years, had just run a store called Grove Furnishings. He has been an anchor of the Morganford Business District for quite some time. When I first took this area over, 2003, his business was the only business there that everyone built around. So and he lives right across the street from this property also. So we're talking about someone who's well invested into the city of St. Louis and this neighborhood and has nothing but the best interest of this neighborhood and the city of St. Louis in his heart and will do a fine job. I can guarantee that, having known him for all this time. So what we have here to me is a very, very win-win situation for everyone involved. I'm open to any questions. If you'd like to hear from Mr. Wagner, he's here to answer questions also, as well as Mr. Gravaya from the Comptroller's Office, who's handling the sale.
I also have renderings.
Oh, we have renderings? They'd love to see
Renderings.
that.
I only have 3, but.
We can pass those out.
Sure, if you want to pass those around.
One,
And the renderings actually are on the second page.
yeah, that's what it looks like
That's
now.
what it looks
Second
like
page
now.
is what it will be.
Correct.
Hold on a second.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you sign up to speak?
He did not.
I did.
Okay, I need you to do that. Where's the sign-in sheet? Is this it? Yes.
If you're worried about, as you read the bill, the price is $55,000, which, if I had my way, it'd be more, but we need to keep some money for the city. So, but it's a win-win situation because this, again, this property is derelict and the city cannot afford to keep it up. It's quite obvious. If you would like to take a tour of it, you wouldn't want to take a tour of it, I can guarantee you that.
It look good on the outside.
Yeah, well.
Apparently, so
So, the chairman's back. You want me to go ahead?
Yeah, you go.
Okay. So, one of the things that I noticed, in the picture here, tell us a little bit more about what the plans are for the facade of the building.
That's, he has renderings.
I didn't
It's
see
under
that.
here.
Yeah,
Here, I'll
there's a
take that.
before and what he hopes to be after
That's the
picture.
after.
Okay,
There you go.
thank you. Ooh,
That's what I saw a glimpse of. I was like, that looks nice.
oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
That's totally different.
See, one picture's worth 1,000 words or just
Yeah,
one ooh?
Sure change my mind. Okay, so, my next, I wanted to make sure that you were totally finished with your presentation.
yes, ma'am.
Before we go into
No,
questions
no,
from
you're
committee.
fine. I'll take any questions.
Mr. Garavelli, anything else you'd like to add?
No, ma'am, just whatever you have questions, if I
Okay.
can help, I'd be happy to.
Okay, I'd like to ask the owner of the project
Sure.
to give us the thoughts that he'd like to leave with us.
Sure. As Alderman Ballmer said, I live across the street. The mid to long-term use for this, initially, I want to do single-family residence, universal design, so someone who can't get up and down the steps, which I think in probably 10 or 15 years will be me, and I have a 15-foot ceilings across the street, so I actually anticipate moving into this property at some point. Probably not, probably not next year, but I do anticipate going there. I'm looking at a construction budget of probably $225 on it. I'm gonna do a garage in the back, possibly a basement underneath the garage, depending on how all of that works. Again, universal design, hopefully 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. I don't plan on substantially altering the footprint of the building. If you look on the rendering, the back quarter is a little bit of a different color. That is currently an addition. I don't know when it was put on. It was currently an addition that is not in very good shape. It either needs to be come off and be rebuilt, or possibly I can salvage it, but it's looking at this point like that probably has to come off and be rebuilt. So that's the long and short of it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'm gonna recommend to you very
Sure.
quickly here, when you consider that basement addition.
Sure.
That you make sure you get your survey done first.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Because if I remember right, there's a sloping that goes on that back street,
Mhm.
and that could cause some problems.
Sure. And I'm not completely positive I'm gonna do a basement. Obviously, with a slab building, it's a slab building. I'll need storage, or we'll need storage in there, so we may go
And the
up with storage.
reinforcement and.
Sure, of course.
With this territory and the soil.
Sure, of course.
Based on, it's gonna cost you double.
I get it.
Yeah,
Sure.
so just think about it.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes, thanks.
I'd like to now start with questions for the committee, okay? And so I'm gonna start off with, no,
Oh, you're right.
Alderman Moore, that's right. You have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I was out in the hall doing what I had to do.
Okay.
Why is this in Ways and Means?
Because it's a city-owned property that we're going to be selling to the Wagner family.
Okay, City owns it.
City owns it, yes, has owned it for some time. It served as a, I believe, like a rec center way
Way
back
back in
when.
the day.
They've tried to rent it out. In fact, there was a gymnasium that they tried to rent privately, but it stunk so bad in the building, and because the roof was leaking, it was full of mold. It's just, you know, I actually tried to use it, and I left my membership money and said, thanks, bye, see ya. But, yeah, it's not inhabitable.
How much are we gaining from this?
$55,000 would be the sale price.
And it's gonna turn into what?
A single-family home, universal design.
How much money?
Well, he's investing $225,000 into it to turn it into a single-family residence.
Single family. That's all I have.
Okay,
All
thank
right,
you.
sir. Alderman Vaccaro?
I have nothing on this.
Okay. Alderwoman Murphy?
No question. Looks good.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Boyd?
No question.
Thank you, ma'am.
One thing, because I'm looking at this design, and I'm looking at this design, and I'm looking at the houses around it, this is gonna be a totally different design from the other houses, right?
Yeah, and that's occurring these days, yes.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. And so, are these residents, are they gonna have any issue with this? Cause sometimes people kind
Well,
of.
it's not a historic district, so
Okay.
there's no need to follow any particular architecture in this area.
Okay, cause that's a unique
Yes,
design, and that's, I was like, that's different
No,
from
it
that.
it might
Okay.
spur further development like
It
that.
might, yeah. That's all I have, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Alderman Muhammad?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chairwoman. And you support this 100%?
1,000%.
Then I would not vote, I would not vote for this bill. I think we need to just let it die here. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Well, I don't have any questions. You know, I'm always excited to see investment in the community, because that's the only way we can add value to our base and have our city thrive. The design is unique, and if anything, it's gonna bring modernization, interest for other people to start doing things with their property. So that's good. All right.
Madam Vice Chairwoman, I move that we vote out Board Bill 158.
I'll second that.
As recommendation.
It's been moved and second. Please call the roll.
Alderwoman Davis?
Aye.
Alderman Moore?
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro?
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard? Alderwoman Murphy?
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd?
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad?
Aye.
Chairman Williamson? There's 6 aye votes.
It's been moved and passed.
Madam Vice Chair,
Congratulations.
members of the committee, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
No, that's fine.
Now, Scott's here.
We got one more bill?
Yeah, Scott.
Oh, there's still another bill?
Scott has one.
Board Bill 99.
Oh, I was just going to pick on my son.
Yeah, just one more bill.
Let's go fast. Let's just say yes. Where's he doing here?
It's a nice place.
Oh, the mayor control. Oh, yeah.
I met a huge fan of
This is
yours
one of
today.
those,
Who? I forgot his name. He's the press
procedure things you gotta do.
Oh, yeah. Huge fan of yours.
He's a nice guy. Patrick Donovan, I think, maybe. I forget his last name.
Nice looking guy, gray hair.
Oh, sure, you have a fan, you can't remember?
Yeah, see? Wish I was like that.
Yeah, I know.
So Alderman Ogilvie, Board Bill 99.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Board Bill 99 fixes a small issue we have with an existing water main and adds a little bit of water main. What the bill does is it creates an easement for an existing water main where we do not have an easement. So the Water Division doesn't actually have legal rights to maintain an existing water main. I think this was discovered because here's, maybe pass this color map around. This is right by the area where the Gathering Church was built.
Here's another
Oh, we got more
Oh,
copies. So, right by Manchester and McCausland. So what used to be a used car dealership, which is mostly just surface parking, is now a very large church that's quite active. And they, I think we figured out we had an issue there as they were constructing the church. So this will allow the Water Division to maintain what they have, and also I think, add about 60 feet of new water main to, so we don't have a dead end in the system where water tends to collect, and that you want water flowing, I gather, not sitting in one place.
Better when it's full.
So that's what this bill does, just creates a legal easement for the water division.
Okay. That's, I like the way that was very succinct. So we're going to go ahead and see if anybody has any questions.
Yes.
Yeah. Alderman Moore?
Is the water main in this red? Is that the red?
It's in the water main's in the blue, yeah. It's kind of hard to see, there's a dashed green line.
Good contrast.
It's in the blue?
Yeah, the existing is coming off of Manchester down here, and then we'd like to add this part here to connect it.
With John, I know
on
we are.
McCausey.
So will you have to close McCall?
Make sure we have a quorum.
No,
Still
we'll
left.
probably have to block
No,
a
some people
lane
left already.
and traffic control, but we're not closing it.
This won't take them a couple minutes.
They just
So there's no building or anything on top of none of this?
To get
It's free, it's all street, right?
Yes, that's right.
So you don't have to eminent domain anybody and move people out and all that?
No, they're all willing to go along with this.
And it's an increase in the main capacity?
Well, no, it gives us right for the existing to work on it, and then he connects a loop, because you get a dead end, the water can sit there stagnant for days before use, and by having a loop, you have flow of water keeping it fresh, keeping the water quality up.
Okay, Mrs. Scobie, that's all I have, Madam Chair.
All right. Alderman Vaccaro?
No questions.
Alderwoman Murphy?
No questions.
Alderwoman Boyd?
No questions. It's our water guys.
Alderman Muhammad?
No questions, Madam Chairwoman.
All right, I have no questions. Real simple.
Okay.
Madam Chairwoman, a motion that we pass Board Bill 99 now with due pass recommendation. Previous rule.
Well, you can't do, the room's changed.
Previous rule.
We just still just previous role. He
We
wasn't
cannot do
here.
previous rule.
He wasn't here. He wasn't here for the last one.
No.
Yeah.
It was just this commitment.
Yeah. So we can use previous row.
Madam Chairwoman, previous rule.
Okay, good.
So it's her using previous row. It's now been Board Bill 99 has been approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
We're adjourned, Madam Chair.